Hi and welcome to Rossi Audio again. Today's video is going to be about small speakers, big speakers. There's been a topic on Facebook and there's a topic on YouTube as well. Choose your speaker according to your room. And there seems to be a misconception out there, and people are spreading the wrong facts, if you can even call it facts. Some people say that you have to choose your speakers according to your room, that your room size dictate the speaker size you can have. Well, there is nothing more wrong than saying that. It is so far from the truth that you can come, and there is no logic behind it, except that they think there is a logic behind it. And you have people on YouTube who stands out and says that they are experts on this. Nah. I have touched this topic once before, and when I did, it was mixed in with several other things. I'm going to just try and keep it pure and just basic speaker size, room size. Well, the people online say, well, if you have a small room, that dictates that you have to have a bookshelf speaker. Bullshit. You can have big speakers in small rooms and be totally fine, or even better than small bookshelf speakers. And here's why. If you have big speakers in a small room like I have here, this room is 14 by 12, 12 and a half, something like that. And I have big speakers, multiple big speakers, and sometimes I play on all four of them. I have mid-sized speakers, I have small speakers over here, which you don't see in the camera right now. But when you have big speakers in small rooms, and if you use good amps that is dimensional correct to the speaker, if you know what I mean. You match your amp to your speaker. So you have a good, powerful amp to big, powerful speakers. If you have a small room like I have here, what that do, or what it does, and what you will get out of it is, on the amp, you can play 1/3 of the volume knob. You can go up to like 9, 10 o'clock. And it will fill the room in a way where you're not stressing your speakers, 2, you're not stressing your amp, and 3, you're not stressing your ears, which is creating listening fatigue. So it is a good thing, and you have already then created a lot of headroom. Is a room like this size created for SPL? No, not at all. You can play loud in here, but it's not optimized for SPL. So if you have a bigger room, then of course you can play a lot louder. But for normal listening levels, if you sit back in a chair, you enjoy music with a glass of wine or a glass of beer or a glass of Coke or whatever you prefer, and you have big speakers and a big amp, a good amp, you will enjoy the music more than having a tiny little bookshelf speaker running for its life and playing with limits. Because when you have a small speaker, it is a lot of limits that comes into play. I'll show you. If you have a small bookshelf speaker, this is a 6-inch, and it has like a 2-inch, 2.5-inch mid and tweeter. It is there's a lot of limits to this speaker. One, the size of the box determines also the sound, not only the driver. So when you have a small box, that already is like, okay, you know it's going to be a lot less low-end reproduction. There is also, when you have a 5 1/4 and a 6-inch or a 6.5-inch driver as a woofer, it operates more like a mid-range. Most sizes of drivers in the 5 quarters and 6, 6.5, they have a cutoff around 47 to 50 hertz. Very few goes any lower than that. So already have you cut off a big chunk of music signals that probably your CD or vinyl have. So by choosing a small speaker, you are already doing yourself a disadvantage, and you will be disappointed. You are missing out on a lot of frequencies in the lower ranges, let's say 50 to 20. Then a lot of people online say, well, there's not a lot of sound and music that has signals in the 20s. Yes, there is. Most classical music do go down in the low 20s, even down to the 20s. And certain music, certain songs, or compositions, even hit as low as 16 hertz. So you see, with a bookshelf speaker, you will never be close. So you're not even listening to the music the way it was recorded, the way it was intended to be listened to. So, what's the point? Well, I can add a subwoofer. Well, if you add a subwoofer to bookshelf speakers, that size, there's limits too. You can maybe go with an 8-inch subwoofer or a 10-inch subwoofer. But most likely, even those two small subwoofers will kind of suffocate that bookshelf speaker. So then you have to start limiting your subwoofer and still keep these running like they're running for their lives, and it will not be pleasant to listen to. Let's say if you listen to a whole CD, you're going to create listening fatigue. You're going to really feel it, that this is not comfortable. I don't enjoy this. So bigger speakers with a bigger amp function better than small speakers in any room. Small, medium, and big rooms. It doesn't matter. It's always better. Small speakers are often used as a sales pitch for people who live in apartments with people on both sides, over and under, kids' rooms, background music, satellites, multi-room speaker setup, stuff like that. But if you want to have a dedicated listening system and a dedicated music system, I do not, I emphasize on this, I do not recommend just a bookshelf speaker by itself. And adding a subwoofer can in many times create more damage than good to a small speaker. However, if you add subwoofer to a big speaker, you can in fact enhance the listening experience. Because even the big speakers that I have here, that goes down on paper to mid 20s, like 26, 20, 24, 25, 26, 27, around there, even those are limited because you have the roll off, and depending on how steep that roll off is, there is certain frequencies, even the big ones, don't give you. So by adding a subwoofer to a big speaker, you don't suffocate that speaker so easily, and it's easier to integrate as one whole system. Not everyone might agree with me on this. See if I care. I don't. This is my opinion over 30 years of experience in the music business and the stereo and audio business. So when people say, well, your room size dictate your speaker size, don't listen to them. They're off. They don't know what they're talking about. They have read something somewhere that some gook wrote, or they saw a video on YouTube. Some dude is blabbing away, writing on a whiteboard, talking about frequencies and hertz and acoustical things and all that stuff. And that's well and fine. He might have some points here and there, and there's several of these people on YouTube that is like, you can't do this and you can't do that, and of course they have some points here and there that are valid, but overall, do not take what they say for as being the rule of the land, because it's not. take tidbits here and there and make up your own mind, because that's the only way you can really be happy and satisfied. But I can tell you from my experience, not by writing on some whiteboard or doing some math calculating analysts and doing formulas on how far and how much and this and that. I don't base it on that. I base it on, I have a pair of speakers in a room and I listen to music, and that's how I analyze things. I couldn't care less about math formulas for how big your room is and what kind of speaker you need because of the sound waves and the energy in the room and all this stuff. Total waste of time. Don't even go there. The only thing that matters in the listening room or in your living room or wherever you have your speakers and sound system, the only thing that matters, how does it sound when you are in there listening to your music the way you want it, and the way the music was made and recorded and intended to be played. So you see, it doesn't matter if X over Y minus square or this and that. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter how much energy a room can absorb. Because when you fill a room with stuff, furniture, human bodies, whatever it is, it starts to absorb. So you see, all these math calculations people on YouTube are giving you, and to be like scientifically correct, and this is why you should have small speaker in a small room. You have to think about things. Even a carpet on the floor absorbs a lot of energy. Thick curtains absorbs a lot of high frequencies. So the first thing that gets absorbed is high and mid frequencies. So by choosing a small bookshelf speakers, you have to crank it up like nuts because of all the absorption of the energy from the high frequency. And when you start adding subwoofers, you're even worse off. So you see, big speakers, big amps equals headroom, better listening for your ears. You can hear more of the music. It will sound more complete. And in the long run, it will be more economical. And not to mention, it will spare you a lot of frustration. A lot of frustration. So you see, listening to these guys that call themselves professional, guru, genius online, what does it give you? Absolutely nothing. Just a bunch of grief and disappointment. And then you have another breed of people online, and I can understand this category. I don't have any understanding for people who stand out in groups or on YouTube with a whiteboard or a piece of paper thing and project themselves as professionals and know-it-all, and this is how it is. I have no respect for those people because they are putting on an opinion on people who doesn't know maybe as much as they maybe should have. They put on them the wrong conclusions and the wrong ideas, and they build up the wrong picture in people's mind. But then you have the other group of people who are hobbyists, who doesn't know all this. They have maybe gone out and bought a pair of speakers and a sound system, and they have bought this and put this together based on the advices that they got online from these so-called professionals. And then they start to adapt these opinions, and they go into listening rooms and Facebook groups and forums and other places online, and they start to project the same mentality and the same thoughts and the ideas and the conclusions, and not knowing that they're so wrong, and it makes them look so stupid. I'm sorry for them. I feel bad for them because they are blurring out things on Facebook that makes them look totally, totally stupid. And I'm going like, oh, dude, you just didn't do that, And I'm trying to be thoughtful and kind to them, but sometimes it's just hard. And sometimes you have to give them tough love and give them like, boom. You have to sometimes just hit the hammer and tell them in a way that they get that feeling that shit. That was dumb of me. Why did I say that? Because today there was this discussion, and there was like a few people that they just didn't get it, and there was a bunch of us, of course, that most people in these groups are knowledgeable and have a great background. But when you get 6 people hammering one dude because what he's saying is totally BS, I feel bad for him, but at the same time I don't, because he needs to learn that just by reading some fancy magazine or looking at some YouTube videos by the so-called pros, you can be misguided. And audio is not so straightforward. It is difficult, and it's different from my room to your room, from my house to your house, from that location to that location. It is different. So just be careful and mindful of what you're saying. I'm not saying that I'm a pro, because I'm not. I'm just lucky to have 30 years of experience with what I love to do, and I try to soak up as much as I can. And I'm not going to stand here and give you misguided advice or wrongful information. I'm talking out of my experience and how I see things. And trust me, I have tried both scenarios. I have tried bookshelf speakers in a small room, and I've tried big speakers in a small room. And many times in many different locations, in many different rooms, and it never fails. Big speakers, no matter what the size of the room is, with a good big amplifier, is always better than the small bookshelf speakers. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have 6-7 pairs of bookshelf speakers. But that's mainly because I collect a certain brand, and to be able to have certain models in my collection, I have them. But am I using them as my main listening speakers? No, I have them hooked up to a system over here, but this is my main system area right here, and I use them sometimes, but mostly I use the big ones. And that should tell you something in a small room. That was it, guys. Think about it. Small is not good.